everybody sniffing and snuffling and popping the antihistamines and dabbing the eyes there. Is it worse this year than before, Dr. Bogoch?
Yeah, it certainly does appear to be the case. And in fact, if we take a look back and look at scale and trends over time, in fact, many people might acknowledge that it's just not getting better, and you're seeing worse and worse pollen seasons as a general trend as we move forward. So the reasons, unfortunately, are at least partially driven by our warming temperatures and by climate change. And if you have warmer seasons, you actually have a longer pollen season, and that pollen season might even be extended to up to 3 weeks in some areas. And then the plants produce more pollen in warmer temperatures. So not only do you have a longer pollen season, but you have a more intense pollen season. And all that does is it translates into more significant allergies and symptoms in many people that suffer from this.
It's not just you're saying that. There's lots of actually empirical numbers attached to this. The National Academy of Sciences, their journal, exactly gets to those numbers. Pollen season starts about 20 days earlier, lasts 8 days longer on average, and the plants produce more than 20% more pollen, which leads to headlines like the one I was reading this morning in The Atlantic, Dr. Bogoch, there is no stopping the allergy apocalypse.
I mean, that's probably a little bit more on the extreme end of the spectrum. Oh, yeah, just slightly. But, I mean, in all fairness, I would never want to detract from, people that truly are suffering from allergies. And of course, we know there's a huge spectrum, right? Some people might have a mild sniffle, and some people, this can be debilitating. And so, and of course, there's everything in between. And it can be, it can be uncomfortable and a lot of this, this is something we're going to be contending with, obviously, for the years and years ahead. But of course, we can do something about it. It's not like we have to suffer in silence for people who have these allergies. And there's certainly steps that people can do to at least mitigate the significance of their symptoms that they have.
Okay, pause on that for just a second, because I do want to ask you about that. But I'm just wondering what actually happens physiologically in the body. What causes us to have these allergy symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, this is basically an external item. This would be a pollen or a dust mite or anything that is not us. Our body sees it and recognizes it. It triggers a response in our body that releases histamines, which cause the typical symptoms that people experience. Sometimes a runny eyes, sometimes runny nose, sometimes itchiness in the nose, sometimes a wheeze, sometimes a cough, and sometimes a rash or itchiness on other parts of the body. And this can be very uncomfortable for many people. Obviously, it's rarely dangerous, but it certainly can cause significant symptoms, and it can cause morbidity. And again, we of course can take steps to prevent this or to alleviate these symptoms.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because you and I, just before we began our conversation on the air, were talking about some of the things I was just reading. They're looking into whether there are some foods that might provide some relief. If you eat certain foods, they're suggesting vegetables and fruit, both with high vitamin C levels. They suggest that. Raw honey. They also suggest your personal favorite, so I understand, kale. Apparently, kale is really good for allergy symptom relief. But apart from the foods, what other suggestions do you have?
I mean, kale is the cardboard of vegetables, but that's just my own opinion. I honestly am not entirely clear about the utility of these foods, and I'd love to explore that further. But certainly, allergen avoidance is key. And during times of high pollen, some people can choose to be indoors to just avoid exposure to these pollens. Usually the pollen counts are highest in the morning. So if you have to be outside, maybe you can avoid being outside during the times of the highest pollen count. Other simple things, like if you have the option of closing windows or closing doors. Some people sleep with open windows and open doors at nighttime. You can close doors to help avoid that. Some people might be very happy to hear this, but avoiding mowing the lawn or gardening and getting you exposed, and at least getting someone else in your family or household to do that can also be quite helpful. And even some simple acts like changing your clothes. If you've been outside for a while, coming inside, changing your clothes, or having a shower to get that pollen off of your skin and hair can be very helpful. So allergy avoidance is one tool. And, even steps you can take in the house, like using a HEPA filter. These are things that can help. The second thing are medications, right? You can go to any pharmacy without a prescription and talk to a pharmacist about symptom alleviating medications like various types of antihistamines, of which there's many different types, and finding a product that works for you. But in the most severe cases, it really is time to speak with a physician and even a specialist, an allergy specialist. Some people have debilitating symptoms despite allergen prevention and avoidance and despite antihistamines, and they might need a tailored response. You can even get these immunotherapies, like a specific injection under the skin or even a tablet that dissolves under the tongue that can really help alleviate very specific symptoms for that individual. So lots of things that we can do to help mitigate the symptoms that we have during pollen season.